Wear a mask. Don't organize public gatherings. Close theaters. Close schools. Close churches. Don't spit on the street. Sounds like Dr. Fauci in 2020. But believe it or not, those words were uttered by Dr. Thomas Tuttle in 1918. And that takes us back to the days of the Spanish flu, which incidentally should never have been called the Spanish flu. Didn't start in Spain, not sure exactly where it started, very possibly in the US. But in those days, because of the war, there was a lot of censorship in the US, and they didn't want news stories scaring the public about the flu. There was enough worry about the war. In Spain, though, which was a neutral country, there was no such concern, and the press constantly wrote about the epidemic. So there was an epidemic in Spain. It didn't start there, but it came to be called the Spanish flu because the Spanish press wrote about it. Anyway, Dr. Thomas Tuttle was the health commissioner in the state of Washington. And even though he didn't know about viruses, they wouldn't be discovered for years, he recognized the fact that somehow this disease was transmitted person to person. So he advocated for closing of theaters, schools, etc. And the government actually took his advice, and they did close down a lot of institutions. And that curbed the pandemic, at least in the state of Washington. Elsewhere in the US, it wasn't so good. For example, in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, they didn't believe in this. They even organized a parade to raise money for the war effort. And that resulted in thousands of people being infected and many dying. In New York City, very interesting, there was an opening of a new Charlie Chaplin movie, Shoulder Arms, it was called. Not one of his best ones, but an interesting movie. Anyway, Chaplin was a big star and people looked forward to his movies. And even though there was advice against public gatherings, the theaters opened and showed this movie. And the manager of one of the theaters said, well, this just goes to show how much people love movies, how much they love Charlie Chaplin, and that this would afford some relief from the humdrum of the war. Well, there was relief, all right. Many of those in attendance were relieved of their lives, including the manager who had uttered the statement about going to the movies. So today we're looking at a very similar situation, and we have to be very careful to take the proper advice and not gather when it is not necessary. As much as possible, stay outdoors, because it's not likely to catch the virus when you're keeping distance, especially when you're outdoors. And I think it is very opportune for us now to remember the classic statement. If you don't remember your history, you are going to relive it. And we do not want to relive 1918, 1919, when 25 to 50 million people died from the inappropriately named Spanish flu. So let's take the advice today. The advice that was originated by Dr. Thomas Tuttle so many years ago, and now again is emphasized by Dr. Anthony Fauci. Let's go out, have some fun outdoors. We can't live like hermits forever, but let's do it with wisdom. So no big gatherings, no spitting on the street, no sneezing and coughing in people's face, and as much possible, go out and wear that mask. Even if it kind of makes your ears look funny.